Okay. Good morning. Tim Randall from Links Magazine's broadcasting once again from my kitchen table in a very, very sunny Tavistock. Hello, welcome. I'm with Sue Fisher, who is an expert gardener. Among other things, Sue. Hello, Sue. Good morning.
Good morning, Tim, and how are you on this glorious day?
Very good, thank you, Sue. Now, Sue, you're a writer. You've written books. You've done an awful lot with the BBC in terms of television and radio broadcasting. You write for Gardener's World. You also happen to be our gardening writer for now, I think, 9 years for Links Magazines. And
that's amazing how the time's flown. And it's a wonderful magazine. I'm delighted to be writing for it.
And we know from the kind of feedback and the research we do with our readership about what they like about our magazines, we know that gardening is absolutely up there in the top 3 things that people like to read in our magazines. So, and that's all down
Brilliant.
To so, as I said, you do talks, you do media, you've had a horticultural career spanning more than 35 years.
I know, that's scary too, isn't it?
So you are absolutely expert in everything, on everything to do with gardening. And it's a pleasure to have you with us this morning. So without further ado, so tell us what your life has been like during lockdown, what you've been able to do, what you've not been able to do. And tell us a little bit about that first.
Thanks, Tim. Yes, well, I count my blessings, first of all, that I've got a lovely outside space during lockdown, because gardening really is enjoying something of a renaissance. The side of my business that's really been burgeoning is private garden visits to individuals, because that's something that can be done safely. And I do that by obviously observing this distancing, very, very aware when I'm in people's gardens of, not touching the furniture, not opening the gates, not accepting any refreshment. Though that's something that I think people find quite hard. I'm often offered coffee, and I have to politely turn it down. And if I need to get shots of the garden from inside the house, because the view inside is often very important, and I'll ask the client to take pictures so I don't have to go in their home. So that can be done. And also, whilst the garden centres and nurseries were closed, I was still able to source plants from the wholesale nurseries in the area that I deal with. So yes, I was able to continue forward with that, which is fantastic, though some of my projects are on hold. There's a couple of big ones that I would have been working on at this time of year. One of those is for Southwest Water up at Broadford Lake, a demonstration garden of water-wise planting and water-wise garden products, which with the dry spring we're having would have been invaluable. And also Polorn Forks, which the garden I've developed and designed for the last 10 years on Ramehead. It's a beautiful, beautiful spot, a wonderful wedding venue. But of course, weddings are on hold, sadly. So it looks glorious, but there's nobody there to enjoy it.
I should imagine that's quite a specific garden. It's very exposed there, isn't it, to the sea and the elements.
Well, it's interesting because there are some parts that are very exposed, but it's kind of tucked into that into the crook of the elbow of Polorn Cove overlooking Whitsand Bay, and about halfway up the cliff. So some of the garden is exceptionally sheltered, and we can grow some stunning Mediterranean type plants there. There's a couple of bits which do catch the wind, but in the main, the wind kind of goes up and over, which is quite fascinating, but makes it a spectacular place for outdoor weddings. Lovely. And they've also just had built the most beautiful green oak gazebo for outdoor weddings, which hasn't even been used, which is sad. But those times will come again, I'm sure.
It's in the process of doing these interviews with different kinds of businesses and also some fantastic community groups that we've interviewed. It's clear that for some people, it is absolutely shut down. It's lockdown, nothing's happening, no trading, nothing's going on. But then there are others, like yourself, who have managed to be busy through the period because in the nature of what you do, you can still do it. If you're writing something, you can still write that from home, can't you? So,
Yeah, I mean, so some of the writing, again, is on hold because I write regularly for Gardener's World magazine and do quite a few of their projects and trials. and a couple of those have had to be put on hold because we literally haven't been able to get the products through, because some of them would have been coming from the continent, and if you can't have a wide enough spread of products, it's not a fair trial. So that's yes, pending, shall we say.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it's finding a different way forward, I
yes.
think, is what it's all about.
So let's talk about people in lockdown who have rediscovered their gardens, because let's face it,
Oh yes.
you know, we've all spent many, many weeks looking out the window at our gardens thinking I must do something with that. And of course, funnily enough, having the time to do it for the first time in our lives, probably.
Absolutely. And with, you know, foreign holidays and holidays generally looking off the menu for the time being, people are looking to spend that time and hence improve their gardens and just make them a much nicer place to be.
Yes. And is the weather always like this when we're at work? Or have we had an extraordinary spell of good weather that seemed to start on Monday, the 23rd of March, when we went into lockdown, and has continued on? I mean, it's been extraordinary.
It is incredible, and it's almost, certainly to begin with, it felt almost like being in a dreamlike state. I don't know if it felt the same for you, but having gone from the wettest February on record, which now seems like somewhere in the distant past, what's now being talked about as one of the driest springs on record, and is just a complete contrast. It's almost as though the weather's trying to be so glorious so we can not only appreciate our gardens, but also all the nature and wildlife, because to me that's part and parcel of a garden as well. And the garden's full of birds, there's lots of bees and butterflies. I've been very pleased to have a grass snake wandering around my pond, which has been delightful. So all those other things we're having more time to discover.
Yes, absolutely. Well, I found 2 frogs in my little courtyard.
Oh,
Now,
fantastic.
I don't know. I don't know. I've got a sunken courtyard outside my kitchen window. For those who don't know where I live, what I have, and I'm looking at it now because I've got the double doors open, and it's a sunken courtyard. I can't see my garden. All I can see is a wall and my fernery. And down there were 2 frogs, and I wonder. Actually, a year ago, I found a frog there as well. Actually, one came into the house, and I wondered. I mean, do they find their way into dark little sort of courtyards like that? Is that where they prefer to be, or have they fallen in? Do you think, or not been able to get
Well,
out?
they probably did fall in, but if it's a nice space for them, you know, amphibians, you know, frogs, toads, newts, and so on, only spend a portion of their life in water. They need to breed in water, but otherwise they spend a lot of their time in little sort of sheltered crannies and under stones and in cool corners. So your courtyard sounds perfect. So you could, Tim, make a little miniature pond. So maybe next year you might even have frogs spawn there. You could have a breeding colony.
Absolutely. Right. Okay. Enough about my frogs. Now, we need to talk about your garden. And I know you very kindly have taken some photographs. So with the magic of technology, you're about to show us your photographs and talk us through some photos you've taken today.
Indeed. So I thought I'd just, because I know as gardeners, everybody likes to look at other people's gardens. So I took a few pictures this morning just to show the sort of thing, because it's nice to look at pictures of flowers and plants, but also to talk about what people can actually be doing. So my garden's sort of probably about half an acre, and it covers sort of a bit of a diversity of habitats, from very dry and sunny to some quite poor shady spots. And so I like to sort of have a mixture of plants which are there all year to look at, and then I love growing things from seeds and propagating plants. So quite a few of the things you're seeing I will have grown literally from nothing. So here we're looking on past the vegetable garden and some lovely ornamental grasses which are just coming into flower. I like things that sort of catch the light and you know, move and dance in the breeze. Very easy on maintenance as well. A nice spot to sit and have a cup of tea or sit down. Though actually, I think many gardeners will recognise this next comment, is that I rarely sit down. I generally might sit down and then think, oh, I need to water that, or there's some weeds I want to pull up and hop up again. But if you're thinking of doing something in your garden, something like this, a pergola, is a lovely feature to create. My lovely husband built this for me, and it's now being clad by this wisteria, which has been, it's over now. I'm doing the classic "you should have been here last week" type thing, but it was lovely in flower. So something like that just turns an area of a sunny patio into a nice sort of shady corner to sit and eat or relax in. Oh, and the bird table as well. I like feeding the birds. But I love growing things in containers too. And even if you've got a really tiny garden or spaces like outside your front door, you can grow plants in containers. It's all about matchmaking. Successful gardening is all about choosing the right plant for the right spot. And so this is something, this Californian lilac or ceanothus. I was standing under this taking a photo this morning, and literally it was alive with bees. So do include some plants for wildlife in your garden. Wildlife's having a very tough time at the moment. Fragrance, again, designing a garden is all about something that's specific to the individual, but I'm very fond of fragrance. And these cistus or rock rose are very much creatures of the Mediterranean. Honeysuckle as well. This has a lovely scent in the evening, and it draws in night flying insects as well, which partly I think is why I've got quite a few bats circling over the garden in the evening time. You can encourage more wildlife as well with things like bird boxes. At the moment there's quite a sort of cheaping going on from the various boxes I have around the garden, and you don't necessarily have to have them on walls. This is a rather battered, it'll need replacing next year, but a hanging bird box. So that's a different idea. And although it's too late to put bird boxes up for this year, you could certainly build them and get them ready for next year. Now, I think in common with a lot of the population, I love growing things to eat. And I've been doing even more of that lately. So with the aid of my polytunnel, which again is a really good space, this is inside it when the rain's hammering down and the wind's blowing, is keeping us well supplied with salads at the moment. You can see different lettuce there. There's some early carrots coming on, parsley, different herbs. I've got some beans and tomatoes on the other side out of shot. And if you grow tomatoes, do remember if they're tall growing ones, take the side shoots off every 2 or 3 days and just keep training them, because if you turn your back on them, you'll very soon get a sort of tangled mess. So that's something to do. And I love recycling things. And it was handy that our grown-up daughter was home between jobs for a few weeks, and she could do some nice little projects for me. So she used this bit of fishing net that I rescued from the beach. I'm into sort of litter picking and beach combing, and turned this into a support for what will be my climbing beans and squash. So, and here again, this is another, the support she made just with some homegrown hazel poles and bamboo sticks. So look around at what you've got in your garden. I think we've become a lot more self-sufficient. Growing things from seeds, that's something you can do right now. And if you've got any sort of indoor space, even a windowsill, you could grow seedlings in these kind of like these modular trays that you're looking at. These are some baby celeriac, and is a great time to make more plants for free. So in the left, there's some pots of cuttings I've got growing. They're very simple to do. Just all you need is a pot, a bit of compost, ideally a bit of hormone rooting powder, but just have a go. There's no mystery to gardening, and we all have our successes and failures. But these are all things I've grown seed, so probably that lot there. I've got different flowering plants, cucumbers, melons, probably for about £10 worth of seed. I'm going to have masses of flowers and produce. And do think about recycling, because one thing that I always do as a gardener is make compost. I'm quite fortunate. I've got a selection of compost bins and wormeries here that I have from a Gardener's World trial I did about 4 or 5 years ago. So you can compost all your food waste, and a lot of your things like sort of veg peelings and so on, that can all go on an ordinary compost heap. But a wormery is a great way of doing anything cooked, because it keeps the rats and mice at bay, and you get really rich compost. But you can just use things like these shipping pallets, wooden pallets. You can often pick them up for nothing. Businesses are quite keen to get rid of them, or maybe you'll see them by the side of the road just for a charity donation, and you can make a lovely big compost heap. And recycle all your garden waste, because we may just get to a point where household waste collections could become a bit problematical.
Mm.
And so, and just come with the picture there we go. So if you can recycle your waste, it's a win-win-win situation all around, because you're not only stopping that waste from going to landfill, but you're putting all those nutrients back on your garden and getting really good plants and encouraging the wildlife.
Yes.
I think that's 4 boxes you tick.
One of my crowning successes, I think, it's not my garden, but it's my window boxes. And I've got 2 lovely window boxes out the front of my house. And I went up to see Adrian by appointment at Ensley Garden Nursery.
Oh, that's a lovely place. If people
Ensley Garden Nursery.
Yes.
If people haven't been to Ensley Garden Nursery, you need to go to Ensley Garden Nursery. It's a magical little sort of huge walled garden, beautiful walled garden.
Mm.
Anyway, but he with his team, every year I go there, and my plant knowledge is very small. And I say, I want trailing, I want this, and they take me around and they fill my trolley up with the most beautiful plants. And I would normally have done it probably about 8 weeks ago, but because of lockdown, clearly we haven't. So I just got around to doing it this weekend, and my window boxes are looking fab now. And don't ask me what I call them, because I can't pronounce half the names.
It doesn't matter, Tim. It doesn't matter if you. I always say to people, you don't need to know the names of things. People sometimes apologise if they call me into their garden and it's a mess. And I say to them, well, if everyone had beautiful gardens, I would have no business.
Absolutely.
So that's absolutely fine. But right. Actually, I think that the lockdown did you a favour, because we had some very cold nights a couple of weeks ago.
Right.
So it's probably just as well that your planting was delayed. You'll have better plants for it.
You're absolutely right. I do have one plant, and I remember the name of it because it reminds me of my grandfather. I think they call it, it's a petunia, I think. It's a humbug plant.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, with a sort of beautiful sort of yellow and sort of brown sort of stripe in there. So it looks like a humbug. It's great.
Nice.
Right, so let's finish now. I think we've covered most of the things on our list, but let's just finish a little bit with maybe just a couple of tips. You know, what should we be doing today? It's now the last week of May-ish. What should we be really focused on right now in our gardens?
Well, I would say a couple of things. Do something for wildlife. And if you don't do anything else, put some water out, because it's desperately dry. And it could be anything from, just the simple upturned dustbin lid the birds can come and bathe in, to creating a pond. Now, that's a lovely little project. And the lovely thing about water is that you can create it to whatever size and shape fits your garden.
Yes.
And then you could, if you wanted, expand that to a bog garden and some other planting around it, and maybe a bench to overlook it. So you can make that sort of project as small or as large as you want.
Well, I like the idea of that.
And do sow some seeds, because the miracle of growing something from seed has never left me. Planting something, just holding a handful of seed and just literally thinking that I've got all that beauty in my hands, or all that produce. It's just a marvelous feeling. And to plant a seed and to watch it grow, and then to enjoy the flowers or harvest some fruit or veg, it's just wonderful. But don't be afraid. If you're scared of growing seed from seed, don't worry. Go out and buy some ready grown plants instead. And there's a lot of lovely nurseries around that we can fortunately go to now.
Brilliant. Yes, absolutely. Most places are now open, I think, maybe with some restrictions, etc.
With care. Yes.
With care, but yeah, you're right. It's good for the soul, isn't it? I think probably.
Hugely. And I think the benefits of gardening are really fully beginning to be realised. It just ticks so many boxes. It gets us out into the fresh air. It gives us exercise. We can grow food, we can do things for wildlife. And if you've got any children, and you're homeschooling them, and I take my hat off absolutely to anyone who's coping with that, because ours are grown up now. But gardening is just such a wonderful way to educate them in so many different ways. You can look at not only science, the science of growing plants, but you can look at geography, where the plants have come from. cooking, of course, growing things to eat. And there's a lot of very good websites, people like the RSPB, the Eden Project, the RHS. They're packed with advice and activities. So, you know, do get the young people in your life out there and having a go at growing something. Just have a go.
Lovely. Sue, it's been a real pleasure to talk to you.
And you too, Tim. Thank you.
Our magazines are coming back out now. We're hoping to start publishing again for the August, September issues of
That's wonderful.
and Plimlinks. So we'll no doubt see you in there. And I'm going to stop recording now, but you hang on there just 1 second. So thank you very much for listening. All our videos, all our videos are available in dartmoorlinks.co.uk. So all our videos that we've done with people, businesses and community groups are there. And we push them out through our Facebook page as well, Links Magazine's Facebook page. And thank you very much. More interviews lined up for the rest of this week. Yeah. And we'll see you again soon. Thanks, Sue.
Cheers, Tim. Thank you.